Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to do something I have not done in a while, which is going to be sit down, have a discussion about a specific topic, and then also just have some invasions going on in the back. Now the ones that we have for today is a handful that were pretty hard fought for one reason or another, and I'll comment on them eventually when I have ran out of things to talk about in terms of today's main topic, but as of right now, we're just going to focus mainly on that. So today's main topic is going to be how to prepare as someone who is new to PvP, which is probably many of you guys, since the DLC is coming soon, what to expect, and for someone who has been playing not only all of these games for a very long time, specifically I've been playing Elden Ring since it first came out, and I have not stopped despite the fact that Elden Ring lost such a huge part of its player base. And this is the thing that I want to try and help prevent this time around, because invasions are probably the main reason why Elden Ring died so hard back in the day. And now the thing is that obviously most people that play these games don't have any interest in invasions and stuff like that, but there's still a ton of people who, whether it be invasions or duels, stopped playing the game all the way back when Elden Ring first came out because the PvP was so bad that, well, it's understandable. There's plenty of games out there that do a much better job than Elden Ring did, and Elden Ring took an obscenely long amount of time to be able to get the patches needed to at least get it into a more respectable state. So while even the PvP today is very silly and can be quite frustrating, it is absolutely nothing in comparison to what it used to be. There were so many broken things that aren't here in the game anymore, so for whatever's getting on your nerves. If you're an old head, you remember things such as old Stars of Ruin. You're going to remember stuff like old Quick Step and Bloodhound Step. Now, granted, those Astral Force are still too powerful, but at least big old dummies can't abuse them quite the same as they once were able to. But yeah, anyway, essentially Elden Ring lost like 99.9% of its player base extremely fast. It was like a month or two, and then almost every single person was gone. Now, there was a plethora of reasons for this, but I want to go over what you can expect in today's format, in today's universe of Elden Ring. Now, obviously, I can't predict what the DLC is going to bring for us, but the thing is that it's probably not going to fix many of these issues that have been plaguing Elden Ring. And to start off, I'm going to go ahead and say this, and also understand before I begin that I am not saying that I am some god at not getting mad at this game. I get mad at this game quite a bit. But the thing is that there are things that I try to reason with myself to make it to where I enjoy the game more, right? The first thing I want to mention is that this is a silly game, this is a dumb game, and the reason I say all that is because while if you're playing, say, like duels or something like that, people will probably have like a ban list of things that will prevent you from using the dumbest of the dumb, or they'll exploit you for something that works in invasions but doesn't work in duels. But the thing is that in invasions, if you are the type that wants to become an invader, which is generally speaking in these games like one of the most unique experiences you can have, unfortunately it's just not a game that invasions was really was given all that much thought by the developers. You're going to get spawns that are a million miles away from the home team. You'll have fights where you are, outspacing them and whatnot for 2 minutes, and then you make one mistake, and then all 3 people hit you, and you die. And then you're also going to have fights where you do stick it out all the way to the end, and the victory still feels hollow because whatever the host and Phantom was doing was so dumb that it wasn't even fun to fight in the first place. And that is probably only going to become worse with the DLC. Considering that Elden Ring added all these different combo attacks, combo spells, They added the Dragon Breath, which is just like the peak of stupidity. They added Unendurable Frenzy, etc., etc. It's probably going to, since, generally speaking, the DLC is where you're going to find the most powerful weapons and some of the most powerful spells. That's probably not going to change. And so, when you're fighting 3 people, it's extremely difficult to be able to engage with them. You have to do so much running if there is a sorcerer or an incantation user, that it's valuable that as you're, starting up your PvP journey, that you understand that that's probably not going to change. Now I want to give specific advice to the different types of things you could be interested in. So if you're going to be someone that is a co-opper, you just want to play through the game with your buddies, you're probably going to have a perfectly fine time. The DLC, while I've been avoiding spoilers as much as I can, looks like it's going to be absolutely amazing. And I mean, you'd kind of hope that it would be, considering that it's been 2 years since Elden Ring came out. But yeah, it looks like co-opers are going to have the time of their life. But what about duelists, and what about invaders? Because we're going to touch a little bit more on other things that invaders have to deal with. If you want to duel other people, say like one-on-ones, or the arena has like united combat where it can be 2v2s or 3v3s, if you want to get better at the game, the biggest advice I can give you is to message players that you recognize beat you or did something that makes you believe that they are better than you. And then if they're part of one of the Discord groups that is constantly running tournaments and doing arena stuff, then go ahead and try and get into those Discord groups. The thing is that dueling with people that are good at the game is where the most fun, in my opinion, can be found. And so if you want to fight the best minds of the game, then you do need to find a way into the Discord communities. Now granted, there are things such as Discord drama, which is not appealing to me and also is not going to be appealing to other people as well. But if you're just there and you don't interact with that, and you just get the people that want to duel and get better at the game, you're going to have a good time. You will, I promise. And the reason that you have to do this when it comes to the whole Discord server and stuff like that is because the solo experience of just going into the arena and fighting people will teach you absolutely nothing, okay? 70% of the time you're fighting people who have absolutely no clue what they're doing, and they're just spamming spells or something similar. And then 30% of the time, if you're not that great at the game, you're getting absolutely steamrolled by a tryhard who is just doing everything in their power to win in the arena. And it's not like there's really a problem with trying to win in the arena, but what I'm saying is that considering you're probably only going to fight them that one time, maybe twice, you're not going to have enough time to learn anything really, because it's a 3-minute match. There's not going to be enough leeway in terms of being able to learn a little something about how your opponent plays or how your weapon fights another weapon. And these are all extremely important skills, learning what weapons are able to do what in the matchup against other weapons and other setups. So my biggest piece of advice is you have to go become part of these groups that are going to allow you to get better at the game. And I promise that it's some of the best fun you'll have in the game, because these people tend to be quite chill in my experience and are willing to just have a good old time. So definitely recommend that. For example, the PlayStation PvP Discord is going to have a lot of great players in it. They run a bunch of tourneys, and yeah, a lot of good people in there. So that's my advice for people who are mostly focused in dueling. Now I'll give some advice to people who are getting their toes wet with invasions again. And then also just some general advice that I think increases the fun factor in this game. So the first thing is that there's a lot of different rune levels, and there are a lot of different things to keep in mind when putting a build together. Now, the thing is that you're going to have both rune levels and also weapon levels, and these are important to you being able to communicate your world with other people's worlds and being able to invade or being able to host, whichever it might be. So if you have any confusion in that regard, before you ruin your build that is not going all the way up to the level where, you know, people generally have maxed out weapons, go look up what people, or ask other people what they run for a specific level. So say you're interested in playing rune level 40, go ask somebody what they would do at that level. What would they have their weapons at? Because essentially your weapon level is being checked against your opponents, and it can only be so high and low in comparison to them. So if you're at base level, for example, and you have a maxed out weapon, even if you throw that weapon away, your weapon memory is going to be absolutely screwed, and that character is no good if you kept it at low level for PvP. So the biggest things I would say is that if you are wanting to do a super low level character, which low level is a good way of getting your bearings when it comes to PvP, you're going to fight a lot of over levels, which is not good for you know, really practicing all that much. But you will also come across people that are just starting the game as you are. But make sure that you don't kill Edgar in Liurnia, because he gives you a +8 halberd if you plan on staying at super low level. Same goes with getting Rogier's rapier or the spear from patches. All of these are respectively +8, and then the spear is +7. And so if you're trying to keep your level super low, like level 20 or something like that, these will screw your character up, so don't do that. And then also, say like rune level 80, for example, which is one of my personal favorite spots for being able to get activity. You're going to be capping your stuff around like +17 for standard weapons, +18, and then you're going to be going for +7 for your special somber weapons. Alright, now it's time for a little bit of general advice that I think helps make these games a little bit more fun. Now, regardless of what type of character you're putting together, I recommend that you make your stat spread work in a way where you're able to use a lot of different weapons, that you can use most weapon classes that are within reason for your build to use. So what I would consider out of reason is trying to use colossal weapons on a dexterity character, for example. Now, I mean to say, not so much colossal swords, because the Zweihander is not very difficult to account for. Like, that is a weapon that you very realistically can and should be using on a dex build. But I mean more so like the colossal weapons. You know, you're not going to be expected to be using, say, the Axe of Godric on a dex character. That's more so what I mean. So if it's within like the realms of possibility, and you want to use it, then go right ahead. And then I would try and fill your character out with a bunch of things you can use. Now, the reason why is twofold. One, sometimes you will get bored of a weapon or bored of a pairing of weapons that you're running together, and it's good to just be able to, whenever you want, swap to something else. It will help keep the game more fresh for you. But the other part of it too is that sometimes you're going to run into a situation, whether it be in a duel or an invasion, that the weapon you're using is just not very good against. So if I were to give an example, let's say you're fighting, let's say you're using a small weapon, right? But you have 3 people that you're fighting. You're the invader and you're fighting 3 people. And all of them are running light roll, and you're running like a sword and board, right? Sword and board is never going to catch people that are light rolling. So instead, a decent option is to swap to heavy thrusting swords, for example, because their running R2 is long enough to be able to keep enough forward momentum to catch someone who is panic rolling with light roll. So everything has its time and place, and while you can force weapons if you want, it's not always the most advisable thing to do. And if you're a mage, then the same advice goes to you. Make sure that when you're running through the game, if you plan on using spells and incantations, that you go ahead and make sure that you do all of the quests that are going to give you all of the different spells. Because the good thing about things such as spells is that you never have to collect them a second time. You're gonna just have the once, and then it's done. If you play through the game a bunch of different times, the game is never going to take things such as your spells away, so you never have to deal with that. Another thing that I would perhaps recommend, based on my personal criteria, is this really depends on if the DLC actually fixes the item economy problem. If it does not fix the item economy problem, then I do recommend for meta players and higher, so that's to say level 125 and higher, that you look at getting a friend to duplicate items to you. Now, I don't recommend this if you're lower than meta level, because you're mostly going to be fighting people who are just playing through the game, in which case I think a duplicated stash of stuff is pretty scummy, in my opinion. Obviously, do what you want, but that is my opinion. But assuming that you are playing at meta level or above, the thing is that assuming the DLC does not fix the item problem, a lot of the most useful items in the game are very difficult to get your hands on. And so you can play through the game an entire run through and only get enough string for a single invasion. So if you're at those higher levels, then I would go ahead and do that. And that also applies to like weapons, armor, talismans, stuff like that. If you're really just not about putting a character together, then I would recommend that. But if you are about putting characters together, then honestly what I would recommend you do is follow this YouTuber called It's Shatter. He has a walkthrough series where he shows you how to essentially go through the game without fucking up any quest lines. If you're trying to make a character from scratch and you want to make sure you have as many options as possible, follow his walkthrough series. It's like 10 hours worth of gameplay, and while that is quite daunting, it will make sure that you get absolutely everything that you can think of. So definitely recommend that. Now, the next piece of advice I have is going to be something that you might be forced to do, okay? And that is to learn how to fight on latency. Now, fighting on latency is borderline impossible if you're the invader fighting 3 latent people. In that situation, you just have to go for like the dumbest strategy available to try and beat your opponent, because when you have 3 people you're trying to focus on, you're not going to be able to do the latency spacing needed to be able to defeat them consistently. But especially if you're going to be a duelist, and even if you're going to be an invader, I recommend this. Find people that are going to live far away from you and then fight them specifically. It might be annoying, the amount of latency, but it is very important, because Elden Ring and these Souls games in general are a type of video juego that does not have the world's biggest player base. And so that means that for the people who do play these games, we're spread all over the globe. And so while it is annoying, it is a very good thing to be able to do. Now, generally speaking, I think that's going to do it for the various pieces of advice I have. If you stuck to this point, we're pretty much just going to be commenting on the invasions from here on. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I think that the lineup of things I have right here is going to be quite helpful for people who want to get into the invasions in this game, or the dueling, whatever it might be, because I would like to make sure, if I can play any role in it, that people stick around a little bit more this time. I know that the game is going to have like a whole bunch of players, and then it is going to die down quite substantially. But Elden Ring had one of the most like drastic drop-offs in player base, and it doesn't look like we're going to be getting things such as like 6-player worlds or anything like that. It doesn't look like there's quite a few problems that they're going to try and fix, and so yeah, I think this is a decent list of things to keep in mind. And you know, something to understand about your boy Jaeger is that while I try quite hard to be optimistic about this game, I can be quite a bit pessimistic. And I don't think that there's much of a reason to not be pessimistic, because Elden Ring, it does have some of the most baffling decisions made about it that you can possibly think by the developers. And then when you factor in that we've literally not had a patch for almost a year as of this point, yeah, like we are starving out here, and I hope that they bring great things in the DLC, but I just don't know if we can really count on that. But yeah, to get to the invasions themselves, this has been a very stressful one here in the ruin-strewn precipice. I've had absolutely no enemies to work with. I had almost fallen off the cliff a couple times, but we were able to pull it out of the bag, thankfully. Thankfully, they were just PvEers and not dedicated gankers, because if it was dedicated gankers, we would have not had a chance of winning. So there is that. Now we are going to have a very interesting fight here in the Halig tree, but it's not going to be the prayer room, it's going to be higher up in the tree. And would you look at that, a naked boy with a club. That's interesting. But yeah, I'm trying to hold like a battle line right here because I don't want them killing this Crystallian and its summoning snail. I don't know what to call that, honestly. But essentially, like, I don't want them to kill that because it's going to give me quite a bit of firepower, right? As you can see, like, Jesus Christ, that was a lot of damage. So this guy's using Twin Blade. I don't have enough poise to get through its running R2, which is very scary. They do manage to kill my Crystallian. Have a fucking jar cannon in my back pocket like the absolute Chad I am. Now we are on the fritz. We need to get out of here. Thankfully, they do not hit me as I am jumping up. If they had done so, I would be toast, but thankfully they did not do so. Now, I am taking a second, I'm just recalibrating and thinking about what I'm doing. To be honest, that was probably the dumbest play I could have gone with, but I got lucky, so, you know, accounted, trust. But, yeah, now we need to make a getaway. This area is just too bad. Barely avoid the halberd running R1 right there. And we are on the run. I need to be able to get away, I need to get some healing off, and then we will re-engage them. Now, this guy with the Ruin Greatsword, obviously, he... I mean, obviously we would have mince him in 3 seconds flat if he was alone, but kind of not really able to do that with this guy monkey clubbing me every single time I think about it. And so... yeah, now this is before I changed my arcane build to dexterity. I won't lie, I put together the most goated dexterity build, and I plan to have a video about it here soon. Like, bro, you guys just don't understand. I've truly made a work of art. I had a good like 2 months of using this arcane as my character for the 1000% run, because this is my 1000% run character. If you guys don't know, come check out the Twitch. Absolutely outplay him with the Storm Caller right there. I absolutely love bleed weapons with Storm Caller. Fantastic outplay right there. And we're able to shift the tides of battle. Now, I guess another piece of advice for you guys that I didn't think of is that 2v1s are way more manageable than 3v1s. That extra third person literally makes 3v1s borderline unwinnable based on how bad, like how good your opponent is. And then we do get that true combo right there. So yeah, that is something to keep in mind, is the 3v1 frustration. But yeah, I was running arcane because I had all these different weapons and armors to farm. Now I have absolutely everything. We have moved on to New Game Plus, and I am running through the game doing the quests that I need to, which is very nice. Now, for our final invasion, we are here in the subterranean shunning ground. Thankfully, we spawn in an area where we can actually tell where the hell we are. But let's see what's going on up here. Like, what's going on with the host and the phantom? I don't see them, but they're not on the compass. Oh, would you look at that? Yeah, that's what we call bad, to be honest. This cramped of a space, redons, and then this over and over, this is about as dangerous as it gets. Dangerous enough that my teammate who had the fingerprint shield just got absolutely obliterated. So I've got to think about what we're going to do, because obviously this is very dangerous. Now granted, I'm going to shoot them a little bit. Thankfully this does a bazillion damage to the Phantom because he is got no armor on. But I have a feeling that these guys are not going to come to me. So against my better judgment, I am going to go up here. Thankfully there's this tiny lip. I'm going to use this for just a second to get a little bit of breathing space. And do I get this? No, I don't. I'm not able to poise tank that, and Endure wears off at literally the worst time imaginable. I have to stop him right there before he goes for the Endurable Frenzy. That would have been absolutely horrendous. Going for the roll catches right here, getting interrupted by the Radon's Greatsword. I have to get him, and he does not manage to reaction roll that right there. So with all intents and purposes, it should be about wraps. I thought he was going to go up the ladder right there, but he does not, which would have been a very bad play. I would have minced him if he did that. So he's holding his ground. I have to work my way around the hyper armor. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah, bro. Yeah. We're actually out here using old split leaf. Alright, well with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.